Hi students, welcome to VerandaRace, and today's session is all about wonderful questions based on the latest pattern of examinations. But today I have ensured that I'll incorporate a lot of common error spotting questions for you based on the latest pattern. So let us start today's session. So today's session is about error spotting questions. So first question is this, it is a multiple error question. When elections came to a city, when elections come to a city, as they will to Bengaluru in a couple of months, they bring with them a sharp reminder of the difference between the politics of the periphery of the city and that of the city center. The period between elections is dominated by the politics of policy making. Okay. So let us do it part wise. When elections come to a city, as they will to Bangalore in a couple of months, they bring no error in the first part, with them a sharp reminder of the difference between the politics of the periphery, no error in the second part, of the city and that of the city center. The period between elections is dominated by the politics of policy making. So in this question, there is no error. No error question. Wonderful. Moving ahead to the next question. As the rallies unfold around the periphery of the city, they also provide insights into how far political parties have developed their art of theatrical performance. The rallies are often used to present the leader as someone ordinary people cannot treat as one of them, and Indian politicals have developed fairly successful methods of achieving this objective. See the last part of the sentence, Indian politicals, it should be politicians. It should be politicians. So 100% D part has an error. So which options have D? These two options have D. So either there is an error in A or C. C and D, A and D. So error is in A because it shows it's written as the rallies. It should be as rallies. As rallies unfold around the periphery of the city. Why as rallies? Because it does not talk about a specific rally but many rallies. So it should be as rallies. So A and D, this is the answer. As rallies unfold around the periphery of the city, that also provide insights into how. And the last part is, and Indian politicians have developed. Okay. Next question. There is also a great emphasis on the entry of the leader on the stage. Mr. Modi used a helicopter for his entry into the recent BJP rally in Bengaluru. Mr. H.D. Kumaraswamy used the theatrical method of entering from behind the audience and then weaving his way into the stage atop of a bus. See, atop a bus. It should be atop a bus. Atop a bus is the correct structure. Atop of a bus is not used. Okay. So D has an error. Which part has D? Okay, these three have D. So 100% there is no error in A at least for sure. So error is in either B or C. Okay. Okay, this is an error. Method. It's written method. It's like the theatrical method. It should be the theatrical option of entering from the behind the audience. So error should be in B and D. B and D. This is the answer. I'll tell you why. His entry into the recent BJP rally in Bangalore, Mr. H.D. Kumaraswamy used the theatrical option of entering from, because Modi has already taken an option of using a helicopter. So he will use a method. Method is not the correct word. It should be option, right? So B and D will be the correct answer. Next question. The transition from the distancing of the leader into mass politics to a more accessible leader between elections is not always easy. Indeed, many mass leaders failed in this transformation, making them unsuitable for the requirements of governance. It should be requirements of governance. So D has an error. So these two parts certainly have error. Either C, D has an error, requirements of governance. So either there is an error in C or error in B. Let's check B and C. No more required in A. A is error free. So transition from distancing of the leader in mass politics to a more accessible leader between elections is not always easy. Indeed, many mass leaders failed. This should be fail. It's a present tense sentence, so it should be fail in. So error is in part C and D. This is the answer. It should be C and D. Many mass leaders fail in this transformation, making them unsuitable for the requirements of governance. So C and D have an error. Okay. Next question. The controversy around Sunny Leone in Bangalore has added another dimension to the debate on fringe groups in our cities, prompted presumably by her cinematic history. Some activists had protested against Leone's plans to perform at a New Year's Eve celebration. Okay. It is had. Okay, let's see. The government and the police were ambivalent enough about granting the required permissions to encourage the actor to cancel the program. Okay. The controversy around Sunny Leone in Bangalore has added another dimension to the debate on fringe groups in our cities, prompted presumably by her cinematic history. Some activists had protested against Leone's plans to perform at a New Year's Eve celebration. The government and the police were ambivalent enough about granting the required permissions to encourage the actor to cancel the program. No error. There's no error in this question. Okay. Next question. Once we take the numbers present at the protest out of the equation, what distinguishes a fringe group from a civil society protest would usually be that civil society movements have, this should be have, civil society movements have a more rational and, so there is in part B and C. Okay. These two parts have an error. Okay, clear? Moving ahead, the next question. The task of ensuring the conflict does not spill on the street spill on to the streets. Okay. The task of ensuring the conflict does not spill onto the streets would then fall on other institutions. Other major cities in the world have fallen back on their elected institutions to arrive at a broad consensus. This option is unfortunately very constrained in Indian cities. Civil society typically has little more than contempt for elected representatives. So A has an error. So either the option can be this cannot be the option. So either C, A and D or A and C. It should be has a little more than. A little means somewhat more than. So civil society typically has a little more than the contempt for elected representatives. So error is in A and D. This will be the answer. Okay. A little means some. Little means no, none. At a different level, Jitendra Sharma brings his vast two-wheeler industry knowledge to his startup Okinawa Scooters. He was in Honda Motors for 15 years and was part of the company's launch team. Before that, he had also worked with a one-time two-wheeler giant LML. Okinawa has two electric models, the Ridge and the Praise, and already has 750 vehicles on the road. Okay. At a different level, Jitendra Sharma brings his vast. Okay, see, this part has an error. Worked at a one-time two-wheeler giant is better. It's better to say worked with a one-time two-wheeler giant LML Okinawa. LML. So it's like error is with C and A and C. No, C and A is no. There's no error like that. So I think this question has no error because you see, at a different level, Jitendra Sharma brings his vast two-wheeler industry knowledge to his startup Okinawa Scooters. He was with Honda Motors for 15 years and was a part of the company's launch team. Okay. So B and C. Yeah, there is in B and C, students. I'll tell you how. He was with Honda Motors for 15 years and was a part of the company's launch team. Before that, he had also worked for a one-time two-wheeler giant. Worked with, it should be worked with, not worked at. Worked with a one-time two-wheeler giant. So error is in B and C. A person works with a company, not works at a company. Okay. Next question. Getting over the range hump is still EVs, electric vehicles, greatest barrier. Sharma says Okinawa's ridge scooter, which uses lead acid batteries, have a range. It should be have a range of 80-90 km per hour, and the company's new lithium ion brace can travel 170 200 km with a single charge. So error is in part B and D. B and D. Do we have an option like that? B and C. So wait. This is A. This is B. Then C and D. Travel with on a single charge. So B and D should be an error. B and C. Let us read it once again. Getting over the range hump is still EV's greatest barrier. Sharma says Okinawa's ridge scooter, which uses lead acid batteries, has a range. This is correct. No problem. Sorry. This is correct because this scooter, we are talking about the scooter, right? We are talking about the scooter, so it should be has a range of. Ridge scooter has a range of 1800 km. So error is in part D. Let's see which other part has an error. C or D or D and A. C and D. So C has company's new lithium ion brace can. There's no error. Let's check A once again. Getting over the range hump is still EV's greatest. Okay. Still the EV's greatest barrier. Still the EV's greatest barrier. So A and D have an error. A and D have an error. Okay. This is fine. Getting over the range hump is still the EV's greatest barrier. Next question. The Narendra Modi's government's artless political response to the disquieting disclosures on the rupees 11,400 crore fraud in Punjab National Bank, fraud in the Punjab National Bank, perpetrated by celebrity diamantaire Nirav Modi and his jeweler uncle Mehul Choksi are revealing. It should be is revealing. So error is in part B and C. B and C, yeah, these are the errors. See, first is fraud in the Punjab National Bank, and Choksi is revealing. Is revealing means the fraud is revealing. It should be is. Clear? Now small error spotting questions. By the time the plane had arrived, I nearly had despaired of being able to board it. Okay, I nearly despaired. So this is past perfect previous action, and this is simple past nearly despaired next action. So by the time plane had arrived, I nearly despaired. By the time he had reached the station, by the time he reached the station, just a moment, students. Okay, so by the time the plane had arrived, I nearly had despaired of being able to board. So the plane arrived later, he was despaired earlier. So it should be, I had despaired is fine, by the time plane arrived. This should be the correct answer. See, in two actions in the past, one is previous and one is subsequent. The previous action is written in past perfect, the next action in simple past. So by the time the plane arrived, I nearly had despaired of being able to board it. So error is in part B. Neither your earnest pleadings nor your profuse tears have made me change my decision. This is the error in part C, because make is like a causative verb. So causative verbs is followed by bare infinitive. Okay. The gentleman together with his wife and children was, because when we talk about together with as a connector, the first subject decides the verb. Okay. Sometimes the ministers behave as if they were ministers for all time. Why were? Because as if is followed by were. It's a past subjunctive mood. He behaves as if he were my boss. She behaves as if she were Miss India. So sometimes the ministers behave as if they were ministers for all time. Okay. Entering the crowded store, I saw two vaguely familiar faces. While I was entering, entering that crowded store, I saw two vaguely familiar faces. Shows that whether they were entering the store or I was entering the store. It's a confusion. It is known as dangling modifier. So while I was entering, While answer error is in part A. While I was entering the crowded store, I saw two vaguely familiar faces. So error is in part A. See, entering the store, I saw two faces. Means either they entered the store or I entered the store. It's still a confusion. So while I was entering the crowded store, that will be the correct answer. The director knowing store interest in linguistics asked me that I would like to attend the national seminar. Director knowing. Okay, this question has some error, I think, students. Let us leave this question. Because the store interest is something. Director knowing store interest in linguistics. Knowing store interest. There's some error in this question, I think. Let's move ahead to the next question. Hardly had I left the house when it began to rain. So hardly is followed by when. Okay, hardly is followed by when. Turning to the right of the town hall at once catches your eye. Turning to the right, the town hall. This is not required. Catches your eye. C is not required. Turning to the right, the town hall catches your eye will be the correct answer. So C has an error. The request of the student union president that fee be lowered was immediately supported by vast majority. Okay, this is was because it talks about the request. Clear? Okay. Most of us are not aware that eating some varieties of mushrooms results. Why results? Because eating is a singular term, singular subject. So most of us are not aware that eating some varieties of mushrooms results. Okay. Singular subject, singular verb, plural subject, plural verb. After Napoleon had lost the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, he had been exiled to the island of St. Helena. So after Napoleon lost, because the previous action was losing, then he was sent to exile. The previous action losing, so it will be lost. After Napoleon lost the Battle of Waterloo, he had been, okay, just a moment students, some confusion. What happened earlier? See what happened earlier. First he lost the battle, so it will be had lost is correct. After Napoleon had lost the Battle of Waterloo, he was exiled. This will be the correct answer. He was exiled. Simple past, because later action is simple past. Okay. We always complain that prices are too high, so high that we were not getting our money's worth. We always complained that prices were so high. We always complain that prices that we are too high that we. Just a moment. We always complain that prices are so high. Prices are too high. Okay. See what we can do is we can make the lot of changes in B and make the sentence correct. We can only do that because you see 2 is followed by 2. So is followed by that. So we always complain that prices are too high, so high that we were not getting our money's worth. So we need to make changes in B entirely. We always complained that the prices were so high. Now it becomes correct. So B has an error. We need to make some more changes in B. We always complained that prices were so high that we were not getting our money's worth. Now the sentence is correct. B part has an error. Okay. With this, I'd like to end the session, students. Thank you so much.
உங்களுக்குன்னு ஒரு அடையாளம், அதுவே எங்கள் லட்சியம். வெராண்டா ரேஸ் பேங்கிங் மற்றும் கவர்மெண்ட் தேர்வுகளுக்கான ஆன்லைன் மற்றும் ஆஃப்லைன் பயிற்சி.